As most of you know, the 2000 NBA draft was a crapshoot. You know, that's the case when Mike Miller was the guy who had the second longest NBA career out of everyone from this class. On paper, he might seem like the usual shooting guard, a guy who could, shoot and create his own shot. But Miller had a very compelling game and a unique playstyle that differed from the norm. Not only that, but he's a former 6th Man of the Year, a former Rookie of the Year, a critical piece on many playoff teams, and capped off his career as a 2-time champion. One of the most memorable players of his class who brought a skill set and personality that set him apart from his peers. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today, let's talk about Mike Miller. How good was he actually? What made him a special player in his time? Prior to coming into the league, the scouting reports were very high on Miller. It was very rare back then, in the late 90s or early 2000s, when you see a guy with an already fleshed out three-point shot. It's cause most players back then didn't grow up shooting threes, but Miller was an exception. I wanted to look back and see what the scouts wrote about him and who they compared him to, and it was kinda weird. Apparently, he was compared to Lamar Odom, which was awkward cause Odom was drafted just a year before him. This is how Miller was described. A small forward who can shoot, pass, and dribble. His dribbling skills are phenomenal for a 6'8" player. He has great intangibles, good leaping ability, and a very good outside shot. Very cerebral and creative player. To be honest, most of this was actually true. It's just that, as Miller's NBA career progressed, he became known for his shooting, mostly, above all else. In fact, right when he entered the league, that made him stand out. As a rookie, he finished the season top 10 in three-point field goals made and shot over 40% as well, which was ridiculous back in those days. The thought of a rookie being able to shoot like this coming in, this was unheard of, and he drew comparisons to Ray Allen. The comparisons might seem crazy now, but their rookie seasons were quite similar. But let's rewind a bit. When the Orlando Magic drafted him with the 5th overall pick, he was expected to be at the forefront of their offense. They were a team in the midst of a transition period, trying to find the next guy to lead the franchise in the post-Penny Hardaway era. Miller was blessed to be given this chance to be the man on the team, and when he was asked how he felt going to Orlando, he responded, "That's where I wanted to go from the beginning. This is the place I wanted to end up. Orlando was what I had my eye on, and I've just got to thank them for having faith to choose me with the 5th pick." Faith is definitely something he needed. A year prior to the draft, Miller wasn't even on anyone's radar. He was barely considered a first-round pick to begin with. He wasn't even sure if he was ready for the NBA. But throughout his second year at Florida, his draft stock slowly and steadily rose up the ranks, until he became a legitimate top-tier prospect. The issue was, his intended purpose in Orlando quickly changed. On August 3rd, 2000, the Magic pulled the trigger on 2 major acquisitions. Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill, 2 players who not only were destined to start a new era in Orlando, but they also played basically the same position as Mike Miller. This sudden change in direction shocked him and his agent, as they believed he was going to be the main guy, and now he might have to come off the bench. It turns out Grant Hill would begin a horrendous string of injuries, so Miller had the chance to start. Him and T-Mac quickly became a formidable duo on the wings, with McGrady blossoming into superstardom, and Miller as his right-hand man. He'd eventually win Rookie of the Year with averages of like 12 points and 4 rebounds. Now don't get me wrong, Miller was decent, but I'm not gonna lie, for the Rookie of the Year, that's very underwhelming. Though this was the 2000 NBA draft class after all, so not sure what I expected. Anyway, as the years progressed, Miller made staggering improvements, bumping up his production and efficiency. However, the Magic decided to overhaul the team, and at the 2003 trade deadline, traded away Miller for 2 rookies, much to the dismay of both T-Mac and coach Doc Rivers, who both adored him. It was a trade that pissed off T-Mac so much because the Magic severely fell off shortly after, which led to his departure a year later. However, for Miller, this was a blessing in disguise. He joined an upstart Grizzlies team that maximized his talents. By 2006, he was named the 6th Man of the Year. Miller joined only a handful of players who averaged 50% plus shooting from the field and 40% from 3. The thing is, he came off the bench mostly because his coaches needed the extra firepower when he checked in. In reality, he was always a starting caliber player. That was evident a year later, when he was inserted into the starting lineup and averaged a career-high 18 points a game. What made him stand out was his absurd efficiency at his position. While other shooting guards were jacking up long twos and the NBA landscape wasn't focused on efficiency, too many players just wanted to go ISO, but Miller was ahead of his time. From 2004 to 2008, he registered an impressive 60.5% true shooting percentage, far higher than guys like Kobe and Paul Pierce and T-Mac. In the 06 to 07 campaign, Miller finished 3rd in the entire league in three-pointers made, with a total of 202, right behind Gilbert Arenas and Raja Bell. In his best years, around half of Miller's shot attempts came from beyond the arc, which was very rare to see at that time. You know that whole concept that we know nowadays as Morey ball? Essentially taking most of your shots from the three-point line or at the rim, because they're the most efficient shots? Well, Mike Miller was doing that in the early to mid-2000s. In Memphis, nearly 70% of his shots were either at the rim or beyond the arc. That's why he was so much more efficient than his peers. He was following this trend way before anyone else even cared about it. So, how good was he actually? Unfortunately, due to playing for a small market team most of his career, he never got the recognition. The dude was a sniper, a legitimate threat from all areas of the floor. His all-around game was taken for granted. Some seasons, he averaged over 4 assists and 6 rebounds a game, a great compliment to Pau Gasol during those years. Even as he got older, Miller was still very productive. There's a reason people say shooters never lose their touch. As a role player on the Heat, he helped them clinch the 2012 championship, with an astonishing 7 three-pointers in Game 5. His 7 three-pointers made were the most out of any player who came off the bench in the history of the NBA Finals. That record still stands today. Then he helped them win back-to-back. It's funny nowadays that most people only recognize him from his time on the Heat. Most casual fans don't even remember what his career was like prior to that saga, which is unfortunate. But I hope this video gave you a better idea of how good he was. Miller capped off his career as a 2-time champion. In his prime, he was overshadowed by other shooting guards and small forwards, and that makes sense, as he never made a single All-Star team. One has to wonder though, what would his career have looked like if he was given the spotlight right when he entered? Miller has always been a team player. He never made a fuss about coming off the bench even at the peak of his career. But what if the Magic never signed T-Mac and Grant Hill, and instead encouraged Miller to be the primary option on offense? I think he could have easily been a 25-point-per-game scorer. He was a complete player and could do a little bit of everything, but he didn't have the usage to score that much. Additionally, he's always been a fantastic teammate. LeBron has said multiple times that Miller and James Jones were the best teammates he's ever had, on the Miami Heat and on the Cleveland Cavaliers. In fact, Mike's one of Bron's closest friends, as he always talked about how much respect he has for him. Miller always had a positive attitude, regardless of where he went or how many minutes he played. It's been common knowledge among NBA locker rooms that everybody has a great relationship with him, from T-Mac to LeBron to Pau to many other young guys and role players too. When he was questioned what makes everyone like him so much, Miller responded, "I understand what they're going through. For some reason, I'm always in a good mood. It's a blessing for me. I understand it's a team sport, and if there's going to be individuals inside it, how do I relate to every one of those players differently? The way I do stuff with LeBron during a game is completely different than what I'm going to do with Kyrie. Some people need to talk. Some people need to laugh. I'm always in that good mood because at the end of the day, I'm playing basketball for a living." That's a nice quote to cap it off. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on Mike Miller. For those who watched him in his prime, what did you think of him? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.